Thank you. With this, we come to semi-break of this scientific session that we all will be breaking for 15 minutes to have a cup of tea. This is just straight. You have to walk along the corridor. On the right-hand side is the venue where the tea will be served. So I request you to kindly assemble again after 15 minutes because we are already running behind the schedule of the scientific program. So we'll have a break for 15 minutes.
Often talk about the mental disorders. When we say what is mental health, it's not just absence of mental disorders. Like when we say definition of health, health is not just absence of disease. So mental health has number of components like a feeling of subjective well-being, a feeling of perceived self-efficacy, feeling of autonomy, competence, intergenerational dependence, and self-actualization of one's intellectual and emotional potentials. And alcohol use affects all these components of mental health. A number of psychosocial problems, again they are not a part of mental disorders, but a disturbance of functioning of mental health are associated with use of alcohol, which would include, say, violent behavior towards family members, marital problems, separations, divorces, misbehaviors in social gatherings. All of us are familiar with these kind of behavioral problems which are associated with alcohol use, and also associated with unemployment and antisocial behavior. So all these problems I am highlighting to sensitize you, especially the our younger delegates and students, to sensitize them to the alcohol problems associated with alcohol. As also pointed out by previous speaker, even a level of as low as 20 to 30 mg% of alcohol in the blood is associated with adverse performances of our body. Like this level is associated with slowed motor performance and decreased thinking ability. As level increases, there is an increase in the motor and cognitive problems. And in our country, a 30 mg% is associated with the is considered legal limit for driving. As we cross 80 mg, there is an increase in coordination, judgment errors, lability of mood, further deterioration in cognition, and further neurological complications occur with a further rise in the level. And a 300 plus % level is associated with impairment of vital signs like our heart rate, blood pressure, and may result in death at this level. So a very heavy intoxication has possibility of fatal consequences. Now, what are the different mental health conditions which are associated with use of alcohol? These include some behavioral issues specifically related to alcohol, which includes harmful alcohol abuse, alcohol dependence syndrome, alcohol intoxication, alcohol withdrawal state, alcohol withdrawal delirium, alcohol induced persisting amnesic disorder, Wernicke-Korsakoff psychosis, persistent dementia, then specific psychiatric conditions like psychotic disorders, mood disorders, or anxiety disorders which are associated with use of alcohol. I'll be also briefly discussing about the alcohol associated neurocognitive dysfunction because Dr. Padma, who was to make that presentation, is not here. Now, what we call harmful alcohol abuse or harmful alcohol use, these days we don't use the word abuse. The modern classification system, they don't use the word abuse, we use the word just harmful use. Harmful use is a pattern of use which is associated with damage to health, and person is aware of this damage. So there is a difference between simple alcohol use and harmful alcohol use. So there is a damage to health which could be physical health or mental health, and person is often criticized for his behavior due to alcohol by others for alcohol induced behaviors, and there are adverse social consequences like fights or conflict with law, traffic violations. So at that stage the use of alcohol becomes harmful use. Now, what is dependence? When the person is called that he or she has become dependent on alcohol. In this, there are a cluster of symptoms which include behavioral symptoms, which include cognitive symptoms or physiological symptoms. Like person has craving an incessant desire to take alcohol. Every day evening, say a person who is dependent would just walk to the wine shop or say to a bar. No one can stop him. He has a strong urge. There is a difficulty cutting down on the amount of drinking or has difficulty in stopping his drinks, develops withdrawal symptoms whenever he or she tries to stop. I'll be discussing in more detail what are the withdrawal symptoms. Then there is an increasing amount, this is a physiological physiological characteristic, that there is increasing amount of alcohol is required to have the same effect. And this person starts neglecting his or her interest, responsibilities. Due to time he spends on getting alcohol and he remains intoxicated under alcohol. So lot of time he or she is spending on just under influence of alcohol or while drinking, or say time taken to procure alcohol from different places. And he persists with this use despite clear evidence of different harmful consequences, which could be physical, which could be mental or physiological. Now coming to what is alcohol intoxication. It's a simple that person has had heavy dose of alcohol, and after that, under that influence, a person is called intoxicated. In this, there may be different kinds of behaviors like sexual or aggressive behavior, mood disability, impaired judgment. And then there could be neurological symptoms like slurring of speech, incoordination, unsteady gait, nystagmus, and ultimately progressing into stupor or coma. Now, whenever a person, the effect of alcohol goes off in a person who is dependent on it, the person develops withdrawal symptoms. Now, these withdrawal symptoms can be in different forms. In the form of generalized tremulousness is a very characteristic symptom, especially a person who is dependent on it. In the morning, when the person gets up, the first thing he gets tremulousness. That's also called morning shakes or tremors. And person tries to have another drink, and after that, those symptoms disappear. Classically, it appears after 6 to 8 hours of last intake. So that's how the person gets symptoms in the morning, because he or she has taken the last drink in say around 10, 11 or 12, and in the morning when he or she gets up, he gets these symptoms. There could be perceptual symptoms or psychotic symptoms which appear slightly later, and seizures can also occur after 12 to 24 hours in persons who are dependent on it. And delirium, which is a classical psychotic syndrome or classical syndrome which is seen with use of long-standing use of alcohol, occurs usually after 24 hours. So there are tremulousness, there are autonomic sympathetic hyperactivity like sweating, tachycardia, anxiety, irritability, difficulty getting sleep. There could be gastrointestinal symptoms like nausea, vomiting. The person appears alert during this condition, during a initial period of withdrawal, but may startle easily. He is very anxious, very tense, but appears oriented. Unless a person goes into delirium at a slightly later stage, person is may be agitated. Some of the persons, though it's not very common, it's much less common, may get withdrawal seizures. So this is a serious complication. And what happens is this often gets misdiagnosed also, because when the person gets withdrawal seizure, person may end up in emergency, and management of epilepsy may be instituted, because history of alcohol may or may not be available. It's only if when the history of alcohol becomes available, then person would be treated for alcohol withdrawal seizure, but by that time the person has already got a heavy dose of anti-epileptics like phenytoin. In such cases, why I am emphasizing, because we have a lot of our young colleagues who need to be sensitized with this thing, because you will be seeing such cases in emergency. Differential diagnosis considered whenever a person with epilepsy seizures comes, you have to consider differentials of head injury, CNS infections, CNS neuroplasm, hypoglycemia, hyponatremia. Because all these conditions can lead to sudden seizure in the absence of previous history of epilepsy. And benzodiazepines are the usual treatment of choice for withdrawal seizure. It's not the anti-epileptic, it's benzodiazepines like diazepam, lorazepam. Diazepam is available in an injectable form in our country. Now, delirium tremens, which I just referred to, this is a purely brief psychiatric syndrome which is associated with the heavy use of alcohol and occurs whenever a person tries to stop it or tries to reduce drinking. And one common situation in delirium is a patient gets admitted to a medicine or surgery ward or any of the wards in a hospital, and after 24 hours, after 1 to 2 days of admission, the person develops delirium. Reason being, in the hospital, person has not been able to get alcohol, and that time the person develops delirium. And the problem of alcohol is recognized for the first time in the hospital at that time. This is a life-threatening situation with a mortality of 20% if it remains untreated, and which remains even at 5% even in the treated population. So this is such a serious condition associated with the long-term use of alcohol. Generally seen after 5 to 15 years of heavy drinking. And there is a classical triad of symptoms, which is clouding of consciousness and confusion. Person may show visual hallucinations after sees imaginary figures, and sometimes may try to attack the persons whom he or she is seeing, and may injure himself, or may sometimes fall down from the bed, or may try to jump from the window. So that way the person needs very careful monitoring. And there are marked tremors, associated delusions, agitation, insomnia, and the reversal of the sleep-wake cycle. Often the symptoms become more pronounced in the evening. As the darkness starts, the symptoms become more pronounced. The next is the Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, Wernicke encephalopathy, or alcoholic encephalopathy. This is a neurological condition which is seen with the use of alcohol, and occurs again when the person stops alcohol, becomes abstinent in the initial few days. And it's characterized by the neuropathological lesions. So the cause lies in the brain, in the paraventricular areas, mammillary bodies, thalamus, hypothalamus. These are the different areas involved with the encephalopathy. And the clinical presentation consists of ataxia, incoordinated gait, vestibular dysfunction, confusion, and there are classical ocular abnormalities. Classical abnormalities seen in the eye examination in the form of nystagmus, lateral orbital palsy, gaze palsy, sluggish reaction to light. So, and these are the signs which can be easily identified. They are not difficult to identify unless the person is not careful in examining. Then there is a alcohol-induced persisting amnesic disorder. This is develops after the person is recovering from Wernicke encephalopathy, especially if the person is not aggressively treated during the withdrawal state and for Wernicke encephalopathy. The person may go on to develop amnesic syndrome, which is characterized by there is a disturbance in short-term memory, especially the recent memory, in which the learning of new material is affected. There is a disturbance of time sense. Person often indulges in confabulations, often would come with the wonderful stories to fill up the time gaps, because person is not able to remember. So this kind of rearranging of chronology is seen in the patients who suffer from Korsakoff syndrome. And there is the immediate memory is intact. A person, if you tell something at that time, immediately a person would be able to recall, but the events of say 1 or 2 days prior to that, person may not be able to recall. And consciousness is intact in this thing. Another neurological syndrome or some neurocognitive disorder which is associated with use of alcohol is persisting dementia. Now this is a condition which has some controversies whether it's alcohol is causing a condition, or alcohol is leading to dementia, or it's the adverse effect of alcohol on different body organs. Like alcoholism is often associated with frequent head injuries, poor nutrition, and malfunctioning of different other organs like liver or renal system or pancreas. Whether this is secondary to the adverse effects of alcohol on other body system, or is it directly related to use of alcohol. There is a cortical atrophy. This is sign of dementia, enlarged ventricles. Now blackouts is another common neurocognitive disturbance which is seen with the chronic use of alcohol, in which the person is unable to remember the events which happened when the person was intoxicated, usually seen in persons with heavy drinking. Apparently, person was awake when he had taken those heavy dose of alcohol, but is not able to remember the events of that period. So that's called blackout. Nearly 40% of drinkers suffer blackout at some time. Then there is alcohol-induced psychotic disorder. In this, person may present with delusions, hallucinations, the classical symptoms of psychosis. Auditory hallucinations are more common, but sensorium is clear. Here the person is fully conscious. So that's a distinguishing point from delirium tremens. And this may happen, may start during intoxication or during the withdrawal phase. Same way, use of alcohol is associated with depression, with mania, bipolar disorder, and we make the diagnosis of alcohol-induced mood disorders only when the symptoms are directly attributable to use of alcohol, like the onset is during intoxication or withdrawal. As such, there is a high comorbidity of depression and mood disorders with use of alcohol, but there they are the coexisting conditions, and we call it alcohol-induced when it's seen during starts during intoxication or during withdrawal phase. Same way, there is alcohol-induced anxiety disorders, panic, generalized anxiety disorder, obsessions. Now, how do we manage alcohol use disorders in clinical practice? Now, treatment of alcohol use does not require any specialization in most of the cases. Only in the complicated cases it would require specific skills, but the initiation of alcohol use treatment can definitely be done at the primary care level. Any doctor can start the treatment of alcohol use disorders. So that's why I'm putting so much of emphasis, and in one of the subsequent lectures by Dr. P.D. Garg, he would be discussing about the primary, secondary and tertiary management of alcohol use in different settings. So there are 3 steps in treatment of alcohol use disorders. One is intervention, detoxification and rehabilitation. Now, every patient who is using alcohol, every person who is using alcohol is always in a phase of denial. Person would never accept that he or she has got, of course in our Indian situation it's mostly he, that he has got a alcohol use problem. So one of the most important thing is to identify the problem and motivate the patient. Often this problem is hidden or problems remains because person is in phase of denial, person never gives a history of alcohol. So as a doctor, we have responsibility to have early identification, and we should always take history of alcohol use on every visit. Whenever a person comes for any problem, we can ask one question, and that helps in sensitizing the person to use of alcohol also. And we should always emphasize on adverse consequences of alcohol. This is not one or two visits. If it's done on every visit, this will help in creating sensitization and motivate the person to come for treatment, to accept the problem and to come for treatment. If we try to build upon the presenting problem, like person has come for the sleep disturbance or sexual issues, depression, or say liver problem or some other medical problem, so we try to emphasize that this problem has got a relationship with use of alcohol. So that will help in motivating the person to seek treatment and to accept the problem. And one, of course, should never be critical, should be non-judgmental, but one needs to be persistent. So I'm putting so much emphasis on this because this is very important, and with our young colleagues. And I said single intervention is really rarely sufficient. Now, then comes the next step, that is the detoxification, because person has been using alcohol for a long period, and a person stops it suddenly, that's going to have serious adverse consequences, which could be delirium, which is a very serious condition and with a high potential of fatality. Then wernicke encephalopathy, which could also be irreversible. So that's why we need to go for a systematic treatment and systematic detoxification. So abrupt cessation is never recommended. Now, most patients can be managed on outpatient basis. Purpose is to reduce subjective and objective discomfort to prevent complications. But before that, we have to go for assessment, which includes history of previous episodes of withdrawal, physical examination, routine investigation, kidney function, liver function, time of most recent drink, competent use of other substances, severity of earlier withdrawal if the person had, and coexisting medical or psychiatric disorders. And then we also give thiamine supplementation, which is because the persons with long-standing alcohol problem often suffer thiamine deficiency. So thiamine, if person has features of wernicke encephalopathy, we give parenterally. Otherwise, oral thiamine can be given. Then comes the phase of rehabilitation. Now, rehabilitation, there are three components of rehabilitation. One is the continued effort to increase and maintain motivation. Failures are very common, but alcohol dependence or alcohol use disorders, they are a medical illness. They are not only social problem, they are medical illnesses. And any medical illness can have relapses, so we need to maintain motivation. We have to help the patient to readjust to a lifestyle free of alcohol. Earlier, the person was spending a lot of time in procuring alcohol, was intoxicated. So almost his whole daily schedule was circled around alcohol. So we have to bring him back to a lifestyle which is free of alcohol. We have to improve his physical functioning, psychosocial functioning. He is to be reintegrated in the family, which has been lost over the period. We have to remind the patient about the importance of abstinence, to maintain it, to develop new support systems, new coping styles whenever a person offers him drink. So we have to tell him how to refuse. So these are the things where we need to emphasize in the rehabilitation phase. Then we have some medication, other methods available to prevent relapse, which are common. There are non-pharmacological methods as well as pharmacological methods. Counseling is needed for several months. This could be once a week, twice a week, or thrice a week, depending on the convenience, facilities, whether person is able to come to the facilities, how frequently. So, and this needs to be continued for at least 6 months. This counseling could be done in an individual session or it could be done in the group sessions. Focus is on day-to-day life issues to build a lifestyle free of alcohol, as I emphasized earlier also. To develop new social and recreational events, interest in the new social and recreational events, and to re-establish communication with the family and with the friends. And then we have to identify situation where risk of relapse is high and how to cope up with those situations, like a friend offers him drink, or say he is passing through a stressful phase, how to face that, how to cope with this stress without alcohol. So whenever any slips occur, they need to be dealt with support. Family needs to be educated. Family should not be critical. Family should be supportive. Same way, the spouse can be a great support, great help in this situation. Then we have some self-help groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, which help in maintaining relapse. Then there are some medications which are available. Now, when we come to medications used for relapse prevention, they are used, they are within the specialist arena. They should not be used at the primary care level. They are to be used only at the specialist level. There's one drug called disulfiram, which if taken if person is on disulfiram and person takes alcohol, there could be adverse reactions. So it's a deterrent. Then there are anti-craving agents like naltrexone and acamprosate. So we have a range of help available for treatment of alcohol dependence. If a person develops delirium tremens, which is an emergency, person needs to be hospitalized. That's very important. Person has to be kept in a protected environment with minimal sensory stimuli. Intravenous diazepam is used 10 milligram every 20 minutes till the person is sedated. Now this is again comes within the specialist arena, and person needs to be hospitalized. Can be done by a physician or by psychiatrist. Then there are alcohol-induced mental disorders like psychosis or depression or anxiety. Then we need to introduce specific treatment for the conditions like antipsychotics for psychosis, antidepressants for depression, or anti-anxiety medications for if person is having anxiety disorders. World Health Organization has given guidelines for management of alcohol-related disorders in primary care. Uh, in fact, I have tried to include these guidelines in my presentation. These are available freely on the net as free download. Now, coming to what is the prognosis of alcohol use disorders and alcohol and mental health. Nearly 10 to 40% of the persons who use alcohol, they enter some kind of formal treatment. Good prognostic factors include absence of antisocial personality disorder, absence of other substance abuse, absence of comorbid psychiatric morbidity, general life stability like a job, presence of family support, absence of legal issues, and compliance with treatment. 1 year abstinence has been found to be associated with continued abstinence over long periods. To conclude, I would like to re-emphasize alcohol use is harmful, and harmful alcohol use and alcohol use disorders, they are medical illnesses and they need treatment. It's not a habit, it's a medical illness. And alcohol has number of adverse effects on mental health as well as physical health, and is responsible for range of such physical and mental conditions. And every doctor needs to take history of alcohol use in all patients on each visit. That will help in motivating the person for treatment. And treatment of alcohol use disorders requires high motivation, but most patients can be helped. And there's a need of alcohol policy at national level, and that's the reason this symposium, today's symposium has been organized. There's a lot of information available on this website, www.alcoholwebindia.com. This has been developed by the National Drug Dependence Treatment Center, AIIMS. Thank you.
Thank you. Time from abstaining alcohol, the person will stop getting that withdrawal symptoms.
After?
How much time from abstaining alcohol, the person will not get that withdrawal symptoms?
See, symptoms would start after 6 to 8 hours. And usually, sometimes a protected withdrawal symptom can occur even after a month or so. But usually after we treat, detoxify the patient, usually give the drugs for 7 to 10 days. So it's presumed that after that the symptoms, withdrawal symptom won't, serious withdrawal symptom won't occur, but some kind of craving may continue for reasonable time.
That is for 1 month.
This could be 1 month, it could be 3 months, because as a person, like a person who has been drinking for years, while he is passing through a wine shop, so he may get, because such cues which were associated with use of alcohol, that can lead to these kind of manifestations. But as the time becomes more and more, like I said, that if the person is able to stay abstinent for a year, then prognosis become much more favorable.